Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser, and we are here on Wednesday, August 27th for what is a very eventful day for your Seattle Seahawks and the rest of the NFL. The NFL set their 53-man rosters yesterday at 1 p.m. Pacific time, and we'll talk about some of those decisions. But there's already changes. The reason you call it the initial 53-man roster is because it constantly changes. And I just got new information as I was about to start the show that Chris Paul Jr., Pooh Paul, as he is known, the linebacker who was drafted by the Rams this year, had a good preseason and was the subject of a ton of hand-wringing from Rams fans that they let him go and kept Troy Reeder instead. He signed with the Seattle Seahawks. So the Seahawks have added a linebacker and essentially added another draft pick out of this draft class to their roster. So really, really interesting. That was the move I was really watching for. But interestingly, that didn't come as a waiver claim. So we'll talk about waiver claims in a second, and I'm still kind of gathering information on exactly what went on, but Chris Paul Jr. did not get claimed via waivers. And then my guess is that he had probably the chance to sign with the Rams as a practice squad player, but instead the Seahawks offered him a spot on the 53-man roster. This is my guess. I don't know this. This isn't confirmed, but that's my guess of what happened and why he's coming to the Seahawks. Now, Holden Cantor reported this, and I was chatting with Holden, and he said this is confirmed by Chris Paul Jr.'s father. So it does feel like this is a real deal, that he is coming to the Seahawks. And just to give you some idea of the reactions, he posted this, and the first response was, "Of course." And then the next one is, "Watch him turn into an all-pro. The Rams front office legit managed to piss off half its fan base in less than a day." Next response, "Sickening but not surprising." Damn it, to keep Troy Reeder as well. Watch him be the next Bobby Wagner. Of course he's going to the Seahawks. Cooper Kupp, now Ernest Jones, and Pooh Paul. His name's Chris Paul. They call him Pooh Paul. So yeah, most of the responses are just, of course. Of course, this is where he's going. And look, it was such a big deal that the Rams made this decision that Sean McVay was asked to talk about why he cut Pooh Paul yesterday. And I'm going to see if I can find that sound. All right. Yeah, here is sound. I haven't even heard this myself. I'm going to put this on so we can listen to this together to get an idea of why people are freaking out a little bit about this. And let me, oops. Why am I not able to share this screen? Hold on one sec. I'm going to share. What's going on here? Let me open this in a new window and see if that works. Apologies for the little technical difficulty. We'll get there, I promise. All right. So this is Sean McVay talking about why why they made the decision to cut Pooh Paul, who is now a member of the Seahawks. All right, here we go. Let's listen to Sean McVay. This is yesterday.
Okay, everybody, thanks. Yeah, obviously you get to this point and you're trying to.
Oh, okay, wait a second. This is not real. I just realized that before I played it. I could tell that was a that was a AI. That was an AI video. That is what that was. So good on them. They almost got me, but I will say there were some quotes about Poop Hall from Sean McVay a little bit ago. And he said, I thought you felt his presence, felt his range out in the field. We'll talk about here in a second. I'm so glad I didn't play that. Talk about here. How did he show up in preseason? Let me pull that up right now. And I will get to some of the other news in a second, but this is honestly the big news from my perspective. He played 111 snaps during the preseason. He had a 66.3 grade overall, graded better against the run, 70.2, 62.1 in coverage. This is a guy that coming out of school, he had a really nice Shrine Bowl and got some buzz there. He's a little bit undersized. So this is a guy that's just kind of a playmaker. He's out of Ole Miss, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. He went to Mississippi. Okay. Let me double check that. Yeah, anyway, he's 6'1", 222 pounds. So he's very small, has 30-inch arms, which is also not big either. Ran a 4.63 40. And here's analysis from Lance Zierlein about Chris Paul. Weak side linebacker prospect, ascending talent. Paul's an assignment-oriented linebacker whose play recognition improved as the season progressed. He takes quality angles to the action and is a sure-handed tackler when he gets his hooks in. He appears quicker than fast and is better at spot dropping or blitzing on passing downs than he is at matching up with backs and pass-catching tight ends. Paul colors inside the lines and does his job inside the scheme, but he could take another step forward if he can play more of a see play, make play mentality downhill. He had a 4th to 5th round grade. He was drafted by the Rams in the 5th round. So I think this is a pretty big pickup for the Seahawks, and we'll talk about where this is going to fit. And also we'll talk about the rest of the roster and what's going to change. But first, if you haven't already, click like, subscribe, the bell to get notified when we go live. Please take a second to do that now. If you have not followed us on Instagram, we are literally just a few hundred followers away from hitting our goal. We are at, we need like 250 more followers on Instagram, and I'll be giving away tickets to the Seahawks home opener against the 49ers. So 250 of you, if you just go over and click follow on Instagram, I can give these tickets away and get some Seahawks fans in those seats. So let's talk about waiver claims. I will read to you guys who has been claimed. We've got Carolina was first in order. They took DeLavian Campbell, a wide receiver from the Chargers, as well as Damari Mathis from Denver. He's a defensive back. Chicago took, and this is not in order. Apologies for that. This is in alphabetical order. Chicago took a couple of guys, one from New Orleans, one from Arizona. Cleveland took a guy from the Jets and the Chargers. I'm not going to read all the names, but I'm just going to give you the Chargers. I'm looking at this. My goodness, they had 1, 2, 3 players claimed by the Chargers. That's the most that I'm seeing. The Rams had Brennan Jackson was claimed by the Pete Carroll Las Vegas Raiders. So that's one Ram that was claimed. Charles Woods was claimed by the Patriots. He's a defensive back. And then in addition to that, Willie Lampkin was claimed by the Eagles. So Wee Willie Lampkin on to maybe the best offensive line development team in the NFL in Philadelphia. Happy for Willie about that. And then also the Rams had a fourth player claim. So they have the most claimed players. Derion Kendrick, the cornerback from the Rams, goes to the Seahawks. So this means that he is going to be on the Seahawks roster. They will have to move somebody else off in order to add him to the roster. Now, Derion Kendrick, let's talk about him for a second. Darian Kendrick is, I see people trying to find me on Instagram. It is just Hawkblogger, Instagram.com/Hawkblogger. If you're looking for that, should be easy on all the platforms. We're at Hawkblogger. Just follow us on Instagram. All right. So, Darian Kendrick was a starter for the Rams just 2 years ago. He played, I think, like 75% of their snaps, and it wasn't like he was some outstanding player. But then last year he had an ACL injury, and so he missed all of last season. Came back this year for the Rams, and he's 6 feet tall, 190 pounds. He's an outside corner. He's not a slot player. He's fine. I think it's interesting that the Seahawks added him. I don't know if there's some kind of special teams aspect that they know and feel like is going to be valuable about him. But just so you have it for reference, his PFF grades when he played as a rookie in 2022, he had a 43.7 grade, which is not good. In 2023, when he was a starter, he had a 60 grade, which is league average. He was a better run defender than he was a cover corner at a 65 run defense grade. So don't know. This one's a little curious to me. The Seahawks have some other corners that they could be, they had Demarion Williams. They had Isis Waxter. They had, Shamar Jean-Charles coming back from injury. The fact that they went and grabbed Darian Kendrick is interesting. Now, he has been a full-time starter, so we will see. We'll see. I see people asking, was Paul signed to the 53? Yeah, he would have to be unless they're saying that he went to the practice squad, which it would surprise me if that's where it went. Jared Ivey's mom is really excited that Chris Paul is coming to Seattle, reunited with Jared Ivey. So yeah, I mean, I will temper enthusiasm about this as this is not the time of the year that you're generally going to get difference making players. These are guys that teams had for months in their organizations and saw every minute of their practice and interacted with them and decided at the end, you're not one of our 53 best. We're willing to lose you if we have to in order to keep these other players. So these are not generally going to be difference makers, but DJ Reed was a waiver claim way back when for the Seahawks, and that turned into a pretty good waiver claim. And it does happen on occasion. So, I'm seeing Chris Paul Sr., who is Chris Paul's dad, who tweeted out, "The band is back together." So the parents are happy. The parents are happy about the reunion in Seattle for these guys. So let me take a quick look to see if there's any other new news before I get into kind of resetting where things stand with the roster, because we still have to figure out exactly who's coming, who's going, and figure out who's going to potentially be moved off the roster. So we're going to start seeing practice squad signings coming up. And the interesting thing is that last year, the Seahawks had multiple players claimed off of waivers from their roster. Jamie Sheriff was claimed last year. John Radigan was claimed last year. This year, none of the Seahawks players were claimed. Interesting. That also means that all of the guys that they released yesterday have the availability to come back. So we'll talk about and find out a little bit about practice squad probably over the course of this show. I'll get into the Seahawks roster in a second. There's a couple other things that are worth covering just from an NFC West perspective. I talked to you yesterday on the Seahawks Collective podcast that Marquez Valdez-Scantling, it seemed very obvious he was going to go to the 49ers. It was either the 49ers or the Steelers. That came out last night. I just always assumed it was going to be the 49ers. It's a very similar offense. He will, be able to play the Seahawks in week 1. And there's this thing where when it was announced today that MVS signed with the 49ers, it was like, yep, expected that. Then there's going to be folks that just freak out about, oh man, he was in the offensive rooms. He's going to be able to tell the 49ers everything. I'll talk to Coach McDonald about that tomorrow when we get to chat with him again. But generally speaking, that is a massively overrated aspect of player signings. What it usually ends up meaning is that you have to change your, some of your audibles and your verbiage in order to not have the defense know your signals. But I mean, MVS can be out there. He can know every single play in the playbook. And unless he is like in the coach's ear as things are setting up and knows exactly what defensive call to make, I just don't see it being a big deal. I really, really don't. And the other thing is that the Seahawks know MVS really well. And I just saw an entire preseason training camp of him unable to get open against the Seahawks secondary. So I'm not particularly worried about that from a Seahawks perspective. And I think it just speaks to how desperate the 49ers are. I think that you're going to probably also see them sign another receiver, Kendrick Bourne, who is a former 49er who they actually tried to get back last year via trade with Brandon Ayuk from the Patriots. Well, he's been released by the Patriots. And so now you're going to start seeing like a lot of reports of Bourne going back to the 49ers as well. So we will see. All right. We're already starting to get some news on the practice squad. Jarek Reed, the safety, has been re-signed to the practice squad, which is great news. I think Jarek's a great guy, great special teams player, up and comer still. So that's interesting. And then I'll keep an eye out as things develop here. Looking back at, I think Brady's going to be the person that's probably going to break a lot of the practice squad stuff. All right, let's do this. I'm going to go through the roster as it stands now, and we'll talk through that. Then we're also going to go through practice squad stuff as it happens. So we'll talk through that. Let me pull this open and I will share where we are as of yesterday on the roster. And I'll kind of talk you through what's going on there. All right. So we've got Mrs. Ivy on the show says, "Pooh, I'm so excited." Well, that's awesome. It's great to have you. It's great to have your son on the team. He's been amazing, and really appreciated how he's conducted himself and been fun to watch him play as well. All right, so roster as it stands. So we've got 3 quarterbacks. That's not going to change. We've got 4 running backs. All of that was correct. So Ken Walker, Zach Charbonnet, Robbie Utes, George Halani, they all made it. That was correct. JSN, Cooper Kupp, Torrey Horton, Derek Young, and Jake Bobo, they made it. That was all correct. And then Cody White made it. So that was a surprise. I got that one wrong in my projections. And I'm not sure how long that's going to last. I really don't think they need 6 receivers on this roster. And I think Cody White, Derek Young, and Jake Bobo are redundant. So unless he is just clearly a better special teams player than other guys, that he might only be on the 53 for a day. Like, we'll find out. Then tight ends, similarly, I was right about Barner, Arroyo Saubert, and Brady Russell. But Nick Callerup making it was a surprise. And I also don't know that he will last very long on the 53. I think that they will get him to the practice squad at some point. But he's a guy that I've talked to you guys about since rookie minicamp. I was really curious to see what he was going to look like in pads, and he didn't disappoint. I think he was a really good blocker. I think he's the future version of Eric Saubert, and a guy that they can really develop. And I think was one of the better run blocking tight ends in the NFL during the preseason already. But I do think he's like he and Cody White, very like the Seahawks kept 27 on offense and 23 on defense. I don't think they're going to keep 27 on offense going into the year. So I think most likely you'll probably get a couple cuts from the offensive side, and Callerup and White would be the guys that I would look at for that to happen. On the offensive line, Charles Cross, Abe Lucas, Gray Zabel, Jalen Sundell, Anthony Bradford, Olu Oluwatimi, Josh Jones. Got all those guys right. I was wrong on Mike Jarrell, who got traded. I was right on Mason Richmond, but I was wrong about Bryce Cabledew. Now, granted, since I stack rank these things, wasn't that bad. Basically, once they traded Jarrell, it just moved the next 2 guys up. So as far as ordering goes, that's right. From what I'm hearing, Federico Merenges has been signed to the practice squad. I always assume that's the case because he is an international player, so they actually can carry him in addition to their normal 16-player allotments. They'll be able to have a 17-player practice squad. We were just hearing Ricky White has been put on the practice squad. So let's do this. I'll start coloring names that we know are practice squad guys. Let's pick a color here. What do we want to do? Let's pick blue. All right. We'll go with blue. So blue is practice squad. So we can all follow along together. Let's call it practice squad. And we're going to do what everyone taught me yesterday. They were so excited to show me, except I want that bold. All right. So that is coming in. So, all right. So that was offensive line. A little surprised on Bryce Cabledew. I'm happy for him. I really like Bryce Cabledew. I just didn't think he had a great camp or preseason. He is, I think, at risk of eventually ending up on the practice squad, but we will see. Interior defensive line, this was a surprise. Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, Jaron Reed, all expected. Mike Morris, expected. But Brandon Peely, Quentin Bohanna did not make it. And Quentin Bohanna has already been signed to the practice squad. I saw that earlier. So he's back on the practice squad. I'll be curious to see what happens with Brandon Peely. I would expect him to be back as well. And the expectation is that the Seahawks, I think, appropriately assumed no one was going to sign these guys. And so that's a gamble. Like, that's just basically a first day gamble to see if you can get those guys through. We'll see. Now, Peely was injured, so maybe there's something else going on there, but we'll find out. I really like J.R. Singleton. I would be surprised if he isn't signed to the practice squad. I think he's a good one. All right. Then we've got inside linebacker. This was pretty shocking. Ernest Jones, Tyrese Knight, Drake Thomas. those are the only 3 inside backers that they had on the roster as of yesterday. There was no way they were going to go into the first game of the season. So now we can add Chris. Well, let's do this. Chris Paul Jr. And I'm going to make him a, don't know what the color, we'll make him, what color should we make him? Let's make him a, sure, that'll work. So we know he's signed. We don't know necessarily whose roster spot he's going to take yet. All right. Then we get to outside linebacker edge, Derek Hall, DeMarcus Lawrence, Boye Mafe, Chenwosu, Jared Ivey. Yes. Made it. So did Connor O'Toole. Connor O'Toole making it was a surprise. So that was cool. He is also someone who I just don't see them seeing the need to keep 6 edge players. So he's someone I think they could sneak onto the practice squad. We will find out. So he's another potential victim of needing to add more guys. And then cornerback, we will put, let's do this, our new thing here. We will say Darian Kendrick is on there as a corner. So there's that. And then, so anyway, on cornerback, no surprises there. Witherspoon, Woolen, Job, Shaquille Griffin, Nehemiah Pritchett all make it. Now with Darian Kendrick there, do they keep 6? Do they let Nehemiah Pritchett go? Do they let Shaq Griffin go? Like, I've been kind of wondering with Shaq Griffin if they let him go for the first week of the season since he's a veteran, so he wouldn't have a guaranteed contract for the full year, and then sign him in week 2. I don't know. Like, that could be a move coming. We'll see. But Darian Kendrick for right now is a guy that is going to be on the roster. Safety. Julian Love, Kobe Bryant, Nick Eamon-Wari, and DeAnthony Bell. So I think I nailed that. Jarek Reed now has been added to the practice squad. So let's see if do I have any other practice squad guys here. There we go. Boom. Oops. Jarek Reed. Oops, that didn't work. I think it went on to Jamie Sheriff. All right. So Jarek Reed's on the practice squad. I think Jamie Sheriff's going to be on the practice squad, but for now, he is released cut. So let's get that back to the right color. Yeah. So I see people asking in chat about like, why did the Rams let Chris Paul Jr. walk? Well, the main reason is related to special teams, and he was not a special teams player for them. And as a linebacker, I think he was very promising, and this is why Rams fans are up in arms about this letting him go, is they see the talent there. But because they needed him to play special teams, they just weren't able to carry him. So we'll kind of walk through this whole roster and the set of it in a second. I want to tell you guys about something, like a couple exciting announcements. All right. So I was so excited to get right into the news as Chris Paul signed that I jumped right over this. So 2 pretty big announcements. 1, tonight, 6 p.m. Pacific time, we are doing the Real Hawk Talk prediction show. That is the entire crew. Myself, Dana O'Gorman, Evan Hill, Jeff Simmons, Josh Cashman, Nathan Ernst, Derek Gebby, Braden, like everybody's going to be there. And we'll go through our season, our game by game predictions, win-loss predictions, totals, where we think the season's going to end. We have some prop predictions, like how many receiving yards for JSN and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to do that tonight. It's going to be an extended show. So make sure you tune in for that. It's always fun. We have a bunch of laughs. Now, the other thing, I've been teasing this and I'm going to do it. So I'm going to do a marathon season preview for the Seahawks tomorrow. It's still coming together, but I've already got like 6 guests booked. I'm going to try to get probably twice or 3 times that many by the end of it. I'm trying to talk to pretty much someone that covers every team that the Seahawks are going to play this season. We'll talk to reporters that cover the teams. We'll get updates on every team on the Seahawks schedule, including Grant Cohen. Yes, Grant Cohen, the now like superstar Grant Cohen will be on the show. So I don't know exactly when it's going to start. It may start as early as 7 a.m. Probably will start closer to 8 a.m. And it's going to go like 4 to 6 hours. I'm going to compare player to player from this year to last year. We're going to talk about the different position groups. We're going to talk about the schedule. We're going to talk about who they're going up against, all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be a party tomorrow, just talking Seahawks, hanging out together, and we're going to have tons of guests to give you insights into everything. All right. So make sure you tune in tomorrow. We will, I don't know how exactly I'm going to manage all these guests, but it's going to be entertaining one way or another. All right. So I see there's a couple super chats. Let me get to those. Mungalia says 49ers swear they just got an all-pro. Well, I don't think they really believe MVS is an all-pro. Look, MVS is a guy that, the Seahawks signed in free agency for $3 million. He's a guy that was released by the Bills last year and then had a really good second half of the season with the Saints. And in a Clint Kubiak offense, he just didn't do it in Seattle. So he made some plays towards the end of camp, nothing that was particularly impressive. And the 49ers are desperate. So I think they're fortunate that Kendrick Bourne is going to probably be available for them to sign unless he decides to go elsewhere for some reason. He knows the offense. He'll be able to slide right in. He's been productive for them. And if they end up with Ricky Pearsall, Kendrick Bourne, and MVS for that first game, that's not the worst. What happens with Juwan Jennings will be really interesting. I still don't know exactly what's going to happen there, but their receiving core is hurting. I mean, it is, and we'll see how it goes from there. All right. Ali Spy says 6 wide receivers, 5 tight ends on the initial roster. Do you think they might be hoarding pass catchers for as long as they can ahead of the 49ers game? No, I don't think these are the guys that the 49ers are going to claim. Like, I don't think Cody White was necessarily a guy that the 49ers were going to jump on. They let MVS go. So I think they had to know where that was probably going to go. They're smarter than I am about this stuff, and I saw it coming from a mile away. So I would think the team did as well. But yeah, I mean, maybe there's a chance. They clearly thought that receiver was a position of need around the NFL and did not want to share what they've got on their team with other rosters, other teams. Vicente Ochoa, who's been a member for a year, says, any chance Jeff can come on tomorrow for the marathon? We'll see. I'm going to probably do some impromptu reach outs to see what people are able to jump on at random points throughout the day. We'll see if Jeff can jump on. Jeff will definitely be there tonight for the prediction show, so you'll get plenty of Jeff tonight. Ham Sammys says, do you believe there's still interest in signing Dalton Reisner after the practice squad is set? I mean, I talked yesterday about this. I think the Dalton Reisner stuff has been coming more from his camp and his agents than it has from the Seahawks. As far as I know, there's no scheduled visits with the Seahawks and Dalton Reisner. The fact that it was reported that there was going to be a visit and that the Seahawks don't have a visit booked means that the agent is probably trying to drum up negotiating leverage for another spot. And I think the Bengals are the most obvious spot where he could be a starter. He won't be a starter in Seattle. So I'm guessing that they are looking to imply that there's a bunch of demand for their clients and saying he might go to Seattle or go to Pittsburgh or wherever else they said he was going to go. But ultimately, it's probably one team that is actually offering him a starting role. So I'd expect him to go to Cincinnati. I don't think the Seahawks would be against it. I do think their guard position is thin and could use some depth. But as of right now, I don't expect that to necessarily happen. All right, we got a new member. The Real TV joins, man. Well, thanks and welcome to the crew. Great to have you, and nice to always add another person to the channel. All right, so let's do a quick check and see if there's any more news since the last time. So the Panthers are adding DJ Dallas from Arizona to their practice squad. That's interesting. Yep, Federico Merenges is signed. We've talked about that. Not a surprise. That looks to be it so far for practice squad news for the Seahawks. Yeah, as I talked about, the Rams had the most players claimed with 4. The Ravens and the Chargers had 3. Seahawks didn't have any. I still think that's kind of interesting. Last year they had 2. Doesn't mean that last year's was a more talented squad, but that's just how it was. Let me see. Let me see if I can get anything here from other sources. One second while I do a quick look. So yeah, as of now, I am not seeing one of the guys that I interact with sometime on Twitter. His name's he goes by Seattle Ram. Says, let's not get too crazy here. Chris Paul Jr. to the Seahawks practice squad is the exact same as he's on the Rams practice squad, and that any team can sign him to their 53 whenever they want, and you get nothing in return. Well, I don't know if it's been confirmed that he's going to be signed to the practice squad, or let me take a look at that. Or if he was signed to the 53. What I'm seeing here is that so Chris Paul Jr. went unclaimed, and then the Seahawks signed him. My guess is the Rams didn't want him back, or he'd be on the practice squad. Should tell you everything you need to know. Must not have been a good fit. All right, so this is so it does sound like he's actually signed to the practice squad, not to the 53. All right, so that let me revise that in our little roster here. So Chris Paul now joins the practice squad. Now, keep in mind the rules for the practice squad are, I think they get set at like 12 today Pacific time. No, maybe it's 1 p.m. Pacific time. And you have to have at least 10 players that are rookies or less than 2 years of service. And then you can have 16 players total plus 1 international player. And they have that with Federico Merenges. So that does that. So what we have so far is confirmation of, we've got Jarek Reed, that's 1. Chris Paul, 2. Quentin Bohanna, 3. Federico Merenges, 4. Ricky White, 5. Those are the practice squad guys that we know of right now. So there's definitely a number of other guys left to be had. I'm a little surprised Damian Martinez was not claimed anywhere. It'll be interesting if the Seahawks actually sign him back to the practice squad. And then I would expect some more offensive linemen to end up on the practice squad. I wouldn't be surprised if we see another receiver, maybe Tyrone Broden. I would really expect to see Josh Ross, Jamie Sheriff, Patrick O'Connell. All those guys are potential practice squad signings. We talked about J.R. Singleton. So there's a number of guys. Isas Waxter is a guy I think could end up there. So we'll see. There's definitely a number of guys. So it looks like we just got some news. Let me double check. I think, yes, Damian Martinez has been signed to the practice squad. So there's a guy that I think a lot of folks, including myself, were very bullish on coming out of the draft. Did not have a great camp, but now is part of the practice squad. So I think that's great. There's a super chat here. Let me get to this, make sure I'll get through these different super chats. Hey, Brian, this comes from Noah Berman, who's been a member for a year and a half, which is awesome. It was reported that Jalen Milroe will have a package with the first team. How do you think they make sure he gets enough passing reps to develop? I mean, he will still be the third string quarterback and get third string quarterback reps. He will be part of the scout team at times, getting scout team reps. And he has the VR thing, which is another place where he can get some at least mental reps through. This is just the reality of quarterback development. And the fact that he's getting any snaps with the first team, even if it's just for specific packages, is only going to help him in terms of his development overall. So yeah, I think we'll see how much this actually gets utilized early on, how good they feel about it. I think the 3 fumbles in the game against the Packers is going to probably give them a little bit of pause about how fast they want to utilize him, but it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense that he's going to be part of their offensive weaponry. Brandon Poirier, I butchered that, sorry, says Saints QB room, though. Chance that they snag Drew Lock. Well, they can't snag Drew Lock. He's on the Seahawks 53. The Seahawks would have to trade Drew Lock for another team to get him. And there's just no interest from the Seahawks in moving on from Drew Lock. So he's here. He's not going anywhere, even if there's other teams that are desperate for some quarterback help. Thanks for the super chat. Mr. APAC Leb says, hey, Brian, what about nose tackle on the 53? Trade Mozzie. I'm assuming you're talking about Mozzie. Was it Mozzie Smith from the Cowboys? Used to play for the Michigan Wolverines, where Mike McDonald used to coach, all that stuff. No, I think they're fine on nose tackle, guys. I really do. I think, one, they correctly made the assumption that nobody would claim Brandon Peely or Quinton Bohanna, so they have the ability to re-sign those guys. They've already re-signed Quinton Bohanna, the practice squad, and I think they can get Brandon Peely back as well. I think they're fine with those guys. Initially, I had them on the roster. Those guys can be elevated 3 times from the practice squad. And then, you know, if you want, you can bring Jonathan Hankins off NFI if they really feel like they need to. I don't think that's going to be a place that they're going to make a move. Is it possible? Sure, but I don't think it's likely. All right, we've got another super chat, so let's get on that. Another nose tackle related one. Saucy Sasquatch, who's been a member for 3 months, says Byron Murphy's going to play a bunch of nose tackle again, isn't he? I mean, he'll play some nose tackle. He's good at that position, and I don't think nose tackle means Byron Murphy is not getting utilized well. That is one of the places where he is very productive, and there's different value that Byron Murphy provides. He's not just like a pass rush demon. He also eats up double teams and is a terrific run defender. And so you want to utilize all of what he offers, and him playing some nose tackle is part of that. He should also get more snaps in pass rush situations. He should also get more snaps at 3-tech than he did last year. He's also got to earn those and make it clear that he's going to be productive in those situations. So I don't think the team is relegating him to be their full-time nose tackle. But he can be that he can man that spot when they need him to. Will Fries says, I'm worried that MVS will give the 49ers insight into the Seahawks playbook. Is this a valid concern? Yeah, I talked about this a little bit earlier. This is a very common fan fear. I've even got text messages from, different folks. Oh my God, MVS is going to give them the whole playbook. I'll tell you this, guys, like there's a study done. This is back when I was in tech. There's a study done about if you have an idea for a business and you give it to somebody else or they hear about it, how much does that affect your ability to actually win a competition with that person or that company? And the study found pretty conclusively that it's really the person who had the idea that matters and their ability to execute on that idea that matters, not the awareness of it. And why that matters here is the 49ers could literally have the entire Seahawks playbook. They still have to understand when to call what defense. They need to understand, like, based off of the different motioning and position groups and players that the Seahawks play, which of those plays they're actually truly running. They have to call, they have to then, let's say they call the right defense, their defenders still have to play it correctly. They still have to guard the guys. Like, JSN does not get that much easier to cover in that situation. And being able to run defend against the Seahawks offensive line with that 49ers defensive line doesn't get easier just because you know what's coming. Like, so is that's the extreme if they had the entire playbook. MVS doesn't have the entire playbook in his head. It also, just keep in mind, Clint Kubiak worked for Kyle Shanahan. He spent a whole year with Kyle Shanahan. It's a related offensive scheme. I don't think secrecy is a big part of how they're going to win against the 49ers. It's going to be matchups. It's going to be play calling. It's going to be execution. So I really think it has almost no impact on this game other than that the Seahawks will have to change some of their line calls to avoid, 49ers defenders knowing which audible they're calling, that kind of thing. All right. We've got another super chat here. This is from Dark Guitars. Cool name. It says, will the Hawks add another pass rusher, a big name? I don't think they will. And it was pretty funny last night. Like, there was a lot of noise from Packers fans about Micah Parsons. And they got tortured by John Kuhn, a former player who works with the team, who tweeted out Micah frickin' Parsons, and he did it just to troll them. Like, it came out this morning that he doesn't break news, that he has no information. So I think Micah Parsons is going to stay right where he is. I think he'll sign a big deal. And I'm almost positive the Seahawks aren't going to make a move for a guy like him. Trey Hendrickson's already re-signed with the Bengals. Is it possible they bring in a Jadeveon Clowney? Yes, it is still possible. But I think the Uchenna Nwosu situation reduces that. And I think the Jared Ivey situation reduces those chances. So I think if I was to bet, I think they're not going to add another edge rusher at this point. All right. I'm sure I have missed more news since we last talked about it. As far as I can see here, not so far. So looking back here, yeah, I'm not seeing any other practice squad news so far for the Seahawks. I am looking through just to see if there's any other news before. I mean, interesting. Patriots plan to release wide receiver Javon Baker, who was a 4th-round pick last year for them. So he'll go on waivers. That's an interesting one. So that'll be next year. Thought it was interesting that the Broncos released Adam Prentice, their fullback. He was the fullback for Clint Kubiak and John Benton last year. And so that was another possible outcome. Obviously, the Seahawks are thrilled with Robbie Oots, but Adam Prentice is re-signing to the Broncos practice squad. Let's see. Kyle McCord, quarterback, is going back to the Eagles practice squad. So I think he's an interesting player. I think the Willie Lampkin signing by the Eagles is a really interesting one. I mean, he's going to be on their 53. That's not part of their practice squad. So that's kind of fascinating. Looking through, I think I talked to you. If I didn't, Kyle Hamilton signed a big extension. Not super interested in that. Yeah, I think those are the interesting. Some people already have a ton of practice squad information out there. Let me see if I can do a quick look here. There's the Bengals practice squad. Cardinals practice squad. Cardinals signed back wide receiver Andre Bichellia. They got running back Michael Carter back. Jake Curhan, we know Jake Curhan signed back. Wide receiver Simi Fehoko, which is a guy a lot of fans were surprised got cut yesterday, but he's back on their practice squad. Offensive lineman Nick Leverett. So yeah, that's their practice squad moves so far. Yeah. So a little bit of news flowing through. Just double checking before I come back to this. So as of now, let's go back through it. And we'll talk about who is on. No, Chris Paul Jr. is not related to the basketball player, for those that are asking. All right. So, interestingly, because Damian Martinez and Ricky White both signed to the practice squad, the Seahawks got their entire draft class either on the active or on the 53-man roster or in the practice squad. And they've added Chris Paul Jr., who was a 5th-round pick at linebacker. And they've got Nick Callerup, who is an undrafted free agent. Am I missing anybody? And Connor O'Toole, who is an undrafted free agent. So this is a massively youthful roster that they're assembling. Lots of rookies, both on the practice squad and on the 53. So let's actually go through and count that up. I'm curious how many rookies are on this roster between the 53 and the practice squad. All right. So Jalen Milroe is 1. Robbie Utes is 2. Damian Martinez is 3. Torrey Horton is 4. Ricky White is 5. Elijah Arroyo is 6. Nick Callerup is 7. Gray Zabel is 8. Mason Richmond and Bryce Cabledew are 9 and 10. Federico Merenges is 11. Chris Paul is 12. Connor O'Toole and Jared Ivey are 13 and 14. And then Nicky Benwari is 15. 15 players that are rookies on this roster between the 53 and the practice squad so far. That's a shocker. That's a shocker to have that many rookies on this roster. And I think they really have to feel pretty good about this draft class, at least coming into this season. So let's reset and let's talk about the guys that are most likely to, unfortunately, not be on the roster, at least for much longer. We have to find one player to take off the roster to get Derion Kendrick, who was claimed off of waivers onto the 53. So only one spot needs to be found. Again, the roster as it stands is Sam Darnold, Jalen Milroe, Drew Lock at quarterback, Ken Walker, Zach Charbonnet, Robbie Oots, George Halani at running back or fullback. Damian Martinez is on as a practice squad guy. Jackson Smith-Njigba, Cooper Kupp, Torrey Horton Jr., Derek Young, Jake Bobo, and Cody White are your receivers. Ricky White is on the practice squad. If I was to guess where Derion Kendrick's spot will come from, I would guess it'll probably either Cody White or Bryce Cabledew or Nick Callerup. Like one of those three names are probably the most at risk. The Seahawks kept 27 players on offense, only 23 on defense. Makes sense that they're going to take from offense to, like, they're not going to, I don't think they're going to have that unbalanced of a roster. So that's where I think it's going to end up changing. If I were to bet, I mean, if I were to bet, I think it would be Nick Callerup, but it could be Cody White. Those are the two most likely. Cabledew, just because he is a guy that was drafted, and I think that there was a lot of people in the NFL that liked his potential. He's probably more likely to be claimed. Cody White, because he is not a rookie, I think he could avoid waivers and just become a free agent, and the Seahawks could just sign him back to the practice squad more easily. All right. We'll get to the long snapper in a second. I see Josh Cashman causing trouble as usual. All right. So offensive line, we talked about Charles Cross, Abe Lucas, Gray Zabel, Jalen Sundell, Anthony Bradford. Those are your starters. Olu Oluwatimi, Josh Jones, Mason Richmond, Bryce Cabledew. And then you got Federico Merenges as your practice squad guy. Well, so you've got your starters in Cross and Lucas at tackle, Zabel and Bradford at guard, and Sundell at center. You got your backup center in Olu Oluwatimi. Josh Jones can back up either tackle spot. He also can play guard. And then you go down to Mason Richmond and Bryce Cabledew. Richmond has played tackle and guard and center. Cabledew has played guard and tackle. I don't know that you feel okay with either of those guys getting game reps right now. So I still feel like the guard position is risky. I think that the tackle position is risky with just one true backup tackle. So I still think there's more to be done there. Something to keep an eye out for. Interior defensive line, Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, Jaron Reed, Mike Morris. And then you've got Quinton Bohanna on the practice squad. I'll be surprised if Singleton is not someone that they signed to the practice squad. I think he belongs there. I think he's earned it. We'll see about that. Peely is another guy that could go on there. And then inside linebacker, Ernest Jones, Tyrese Knight, Drake Thomas. Now with Chris Paul, they can work on him in the practice squad. And because he's on the practice squad, another team could sign him back or sign him to the 53 if they choose to. We'll see how the Seahawks end up doing it. And if they elevate him, they also just they're bringing him to the practice squad. They'll see how he plays. And there's a chance Chris Paul Jr. won't be here long. Like, you just don't know. But I think he's an interesting guy and an interesting fit for the Seahawks to definitely check out for that inside linebacker crew. And honestly, that was the kind of player I thought they might draft. Like, so why did they not make a move during the draft or free agency? I don't know. But as of now, that is no longer the question because he's back. All right, so he's here. So it sounds like we just got new info that Jamie Sheriff has been re-signed to the practice squad. So there goes another one that was pretty predictable. I actually had him colored as practice squad before and took it off, but I think the team really likes him and likes what he's done at off-ball linebacker. So now you feel better about off-ball. You had only, like, Ernest Jones is coming off surgery in the offseason. He's been practicing, but he's still, you got to wonder about that. Tyrese Knight is just getting back. Hopefully for week 1 is looking optimistic, but he's got some medical question marks. Then you only had Drake Thomas as a backup. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if Jamie Sheriff's a guy that's elevated for week 1 of the regular season as just depth on the inside linebacker group. But we'll just have to see what happens there. Derek Hall, DeMarcus Lawrence, Boye Mafe, Uchenna Nwosu, Jared Ivey, and Connor O'Toole. Those are your edge players. That's a lot of edge guys. I do feel like there could be a shift there from 6 to 5 at some point. Now, the Seahawks have listed DeMarcus Lawrence as an interior defensive lineman. And the thing is there that the way this could be interpreted by the Seahawks, and I could see it, is DeMarcus Lawrence and Jared Ivey, they're kind of like big ends. So they're almost similar to what Mike Morris has been for the Seahawks or Jaron Reed. They're not quite 300 pounds, but they're certainly big, strong guys, and they can play as down linemen, as I saw them do during camp. So let's say if that's the case, then you're talking about, DeMarcus Lawrence at least added to this number. So that would give you 5 interior defensive linemen, 6 if you want to count Jared Ivey. And then you're talking about Derek Hall, Boye Mafe, Uchenna Nwosu, and Connor O'Toole as your edge players. If that's how they see it, then this, may be different. Like this might be fine and they might just stick with it, but we will see. All right. Next, cornerback, Devin Witherspoon, Reek Will, and Josh Jobe, Shaquille Griffin, Nehemiah Pritchett. Now, still have to watch Shaquille Griffin. He is at risk, at least because he's a veteran, of being dropped before the first week and then re-signed in order to avoid guaranteeing his contract for the full year. We'll find out. The Seahawks did claim Darian Kendrick, the cornerback from the Rams, who had been a full-time starter back in 2023 before he was lost to an ACL injury last year, missed the whole season. So do they go to 6 corners? Do they swap out Nehemiah Pritchett? Do they swap out Shaquille Griffin? We'll find out what the corresponding roster move is soon. We don't know yet. At safety, Julian Love, Kobe Bryant, Nicky Minori, DeAnthony Bell, Ty Okada. So I didn't have Ty Okada making it. They kept an extra safety. They kept, I think, 4 last year. So Jarek Reed's been added to the practice squad. They've got a lot of safeties. It's another spot that there could be some movement. And then sure, here's your long snapper, Chris Stoll, Jason Myers, and Michael Dixon are your other specialists on the roster. So let me double check. So I think folks are talking about another signing. Mike Kliss is reporting from Denver that wide receiver, kick returner Courtney Jackson is expected to join the Seahawks practice squad. So Mike Kliss is, I believe him in this regard. So let's talk about Courtney Jackson. And he is that means that Steven Sims is not coming back. So let's do this. Courtney Jackson. And we're going to do everybody's favorite move now, the format painter. All right. So that's interesting. Let's take a look at how Courtney Jackson performed during the preseason. So first of all, 5'11", 189 pounds. He was an undrafted free agent that the Broncos took. He played some slot wide receiver. Looks like let's see. He caught 5 passes and 6 targets for 61 yards during the season. But then let's take a look at special teams. And let's look at kick returns. So he had 5 punt returns for 74 yards, averaged over almost 15 yards per punt return. That's really good. So as a punt returner, that becomes interesting. One of the things I would love about this, he went to Arkansas State, by the way, the Arkansas State Red Wolves, is I really don't want Torrey Horton returning punts. I just don't want it. I don't think he's built for taking it back there. I want you to have Torrey Horton on the field as a receiver. And I think the best way to do that is to not have him on special teams. And so Courtney Jackson could be a guy, again, they can elevate practice squad guys 3 times before they have to add him to the roster. He could be your punt returner week 1. Love that. As a kick returner, not as much. He had, he had 4 kick returns, averaged about 22 yards per kick return. But I really like the punt return stuff. And I'm going to take a look at him in college for a second. Let's look at him in college. So, yeah, he had 2 punt returns for touchdown last year. He had 1 the year before. He had 4 over his college career. He averaged 17 yards per punt return with a long of 77 last year. Had a long of 60 the year before. So he had a long of 64 in 2021 when he played for Syracuse. So he has been he's a much more accomplished punt returner than he is a kick returner, but that's pretty cool. I like that addition by the Seahawks, and I think that that's going to be helpful for the team. All right. Everyone's excited about the format painter. Yep, I get it. Yeah, Broncos fans certainly were not happy that he was let go. I think they were excited about him. And yeah, I won't read you the responses to the tweet because they're R-rated. But he's a fast dude. So if we look at Courtney Jackson's RAS profile, he ran a 4.38 40-yard dash, had a 1.5 10-yard split, which is in the 97th percentile. Agility grades were relatively good. His broad jump was great. 10-foot broad jump for a guy that's 5'10" is pretty good. So yeah, good athlete, good returner, speedy dude. That's a good one. All right. Other news, if you haven't heard, Marquez Valdez-Scantling is signing with the 49ers or signed with the 49ers. So the Seahawks will see him in week 1. We will also probably see an old Seahawk or an old 49er receiver return to them. Kendrick Bourne was released by the Patriots, and it's expected that he will head back to San Francisco. So I think you will see all of those guys on week 1. All right. Those are the bits of news we've got so far. Tonight, 6:00 Pacific time, we will have the Real Hawk Talk prediction show with everybody on it. So make sure you tune in for that. Tomorrow, we are going to do a marathon season preview. I've got a lot of stuff planned. I've already got tons of guests who will be joining in. I've got more to arrange after this. So make sure you've got some time set aside tomorrow to hang out as we go through this Seahawks team in detail and look around the NFL at as many of the Seahawks opponents as we can and get a little bit of an insight into what's coming the Seahawks way. So I've got a Steelers beat writer. I've got Grant Cohn for the 49ers. I've got a Texans guy. I've got all sorts of people. I got all sorts of people, and I'm going to have more. So I've got a Cardinals guy. I've got a Tampa Bay person. So a lot of good stuff coming. Let me do one more quick check here before we start to wrap on today's show. We'll have more practice squad guys later today. I'll be heading in to the VMAC to talk to John Schneider. So get a chance to talk to the Seahawks GM, which we don't get a lot of chances to do, and get his input on a few different things. So make sure you keep an eye out for that. There's still Micah Parsons stuff going on. Whatever. I'm not going to pay attention to that. I think that's really like all the news there is for right now. I'm looking to see if there's any other groups that I want to pay attention to here. Dolphins moves, Bills moves. I don't think so. I think we're in pretty good shape. So if you haven't already, make sure you click like and subscribe. Also, if you've been wanting to get in on these JK Boots deals, like these are my JK Boots. I love my JK Boots. They are kick-ass boots, best boots you're ever going to own. And all you got to do if you want to have 10% off your JK Boots order is go to jkboots.com/hawkblogger. That will get you a special discount only for you. And we're going to be playing with this, doing all sorts of cool deals. So go to jkboots.com/hawkblogger. This is a family-owned company. They've got like 300,000 subscribers on YouTube that just want to watch them work with leather because they just do amazing things. Not only that, but we've also given away a ton of free boots and charitable donations to the Wildland Firefighters Foundation, which helps keep Northwest forest firefighters protected with the right gear so they can protect our forests and keep the Pacific Northwest gorgeous and kind of the wonderland that it is. So jkboots.com/hawkblogger, get your boots. We're heading to fall. Now's the time to look the part and be ready to kick through with some of those. We've got a couple more super chats here. Let me get to these. So Ricardo Escalante says, what are some things that would make the Rams not want Chris Paul Jr.? Also, anyone that's been cut around the league that you think the Hawks get, besides one that we did. Yeah, I talked about the Chris Paul thing a little bit. I think that this comes down to special teams. He was not a key special teams player for them. Troy Reeder was. Rams fans will tell you that Troy Reeder is a really bad linebacker, and he is. And yet the Rams also got Sean Dolak, who was an undrafted free agent linebacker who played really well, might be a starter for them. So I think in their minds, Sean Dolak was the guy they wanted to keep. He still is from their quote draft class, even though he was an undrafted player. He's a rookie. And I think they just preferred Dolak over Chris Paul Jr. And so Chris Paul Jr.'s got a chance to maybe prove some guys wrong within the division. As far as anyone else that's been cut around the league that I think the Hawks are going to get, no, not right now. No one that's jumping out to me. I was curious about Willie Lampkin. I was curious about Chris Paul, and those guys are gone. I was curious about Issa Pohl. He's been claimed. So yeah, I think, as I've said before, I wouldn't put too much stock into waiver claims. There's a reason these guys are available, but every once in a while you get a DJ Reed on a waiver claim, and you never know when that's going to be. We got a new member here in Penguin who's joined the crew. It's welcome to the crew, Penguin. Great to have you. And everyone else, come on, join. I think you'd appreciate it and enjoy it as well. You get access to the emojis, custom emojis. You get, if you go up to club level, you get access to the Discord channel, which is always fun and where we hang out with all between the shows. All right. All right. I think that's it, folks. I think we'll stick there. There'll be obviously a ton more. There'll be a ton more practice squad guys that'll come. I'll get to those a little bit later. I'm looking. The Eagles just announced their practice squad, along with claiming Willie Lampkin. I'm really happy for Willie Lampkin. Like, I'm also happy he's doing it on a team other than the Rams. So I'll take that. I will take that. Yeah, no, I think that's it. I think that'll do it. Let me just do one more final check. We're going to have so much content over the next couple days. Don't you fret. There'll be a ton to come back for. Make sure you're back tonight, 6:00 Pacific time, for the Real Hawk Talk prediction show. You will find out what all of us think is going to happen in this season. So don't miss it. All right, everybody, that'll do it. I am Brian Nemhauser. This has been another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Take care.